Welcome to the Unknown Webcast, and as always, in case you haven't figured it out, I am so conservative that I have trouble turning left even when I drive. This is broadcast number 18, and our guest tonight is a fellow member of EM&R, that's Evangelical Ministries to New Religions, Randy Shelton from Biblical Discernment and Research Center. We are talking about UFOlogy and the Christian point of view on this edition of the Unknown Webcast. My name is Don Vino, and I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. And our senior researcher is Ron Henzel, who will introduce the sponsors of tonight's webcast.
Yes, I am welcome. Greetings from sunny Florida, where it's starting to get really humid. This week's edition of the Unknown Webcast is brought to you by Assimilation Ministries, where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. Assimilation Ministries and World's End Theology Outlet, your one-stop destination for dubious doctrines, half-baked heresies, and other notions whose time has gone. World's End Theology Outlet. Back to you, Don.
Okay, and Randy, you are in contact from us, it looks like somewhere concealed deep in the basement of Area 51.
He's in contact with us. That's all that counts, right? We don't know how.
Help me. Help me.
Let's not give away his location.
Take me to your leader.
Okay, Randy, what's going on?
Well, I'm hanging out here today. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be with you guys tonight, and I'm really glad that your names are really similar. I've known Don for quite some time, and you're Ron, and that's like Don, and so since I'm bad with names, I shouldn't have much problems tonight.
I hope not. So, what are you concealing or revealing to us tonight?
Well, I've been kind of tracking the whole ufology movement for decades, really, ever since I had that bad incident where I was abducted. No, just kidding, folks. And I have been very interested in this movement because of the spiritual implications, some of the New Age, new spirituality ideas that are really such a big part of many of the hardcore New Age believers. So I'm really thankful to be here tonight and to share some of the information that I've accumulated over the years, and just be here at your disposal, however I can help or be helped or whatever.
I was interested in UFOs when I was younger, before I was a believer, actually. Partly because my mother, who was pretty steeped in what we later came to know as the New Age, before it was just unusual beliefs or whatever. Her best friend was a witch. Her favorite author was Edgar Cayce, the Sleeping Prophet. And she was enamored with the book Chariots of the Gods. Which
yes, Eric von Däniken, yes.
Eric von Däniken,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it intrigued me. Did we have aliens visiting in millennia past who were laying out roadways and helping to build the pyramids and these ziggurats and all of that sort of thing? After I became a believer, I started questioning life in other planets. In fact, I remember there was a song, which neither of you may have ever heard of, was called He's an Unidentified Flying Object, and it was about the rapture.
Larry Norman. Yeah, Larry Norman, yes.
Okay.
How about the other one, Tomorrow's News by Malcolm and Alwyn? Have you ever heard that one?
I have not.
I have,
okay.
But how old are you guys anyway? No, I'm kidding.
We're not allowed to say.
We're younger than the band Chicago. We did agree on that.
Yeah, it's classified.
But there's a line in there. If there's life on other planets, I'm sure he knew and has been there once already and has died to save their souls.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Which at the time, of course, I was a young believer. I having been an atheist, grew up as an atheist, I didn't know that much about the Bible. I tell people I was so biblically illiterate that I would open the Bible to the Old Testament. There's this book, Job, and I thought it was the one ads. I mean, I just didn't know anything. And so it never occurred to me is he talking about salvation in multiple times of sacrifice for Christ on multiple universes and multiple planets? That's kind of mind-boggling, I think, at this point for me. And so I know that people have questions about UFOs. I then also read a book, Joy and I were reading books about UFOs, and some of them were attributing to demons, or just demons impersonating life from other planets. And of course, Ron Rhodes did a good book, UFOs. I think UFOs on Earth's Happening.
That was John Weldon, but
John Weldon, okay.
But aliens, the one you're talking about, just to help you out, I didn't mean to cut in. This is Alien
Obsession, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Which is also very good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other perspectives, and I know that we were a little, when we titled this UFOlogy and the Christian Perspective,
Mm-hmm.
that may be a little presumptuous because other Christians may have a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we view this really from a biblical framework, I guess would be my question. In addition, one other thing I'm going to interject here, and then you guys can go off and running. If some of you, or you two may remember, and some who are viewing may recall, in the 1990s we had a big satanic conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
as there is in every generation, I guess. But in this particular one, Satanists were secretly making young girls pregnant and having babies and sacrificing them on altars in Baptist churches and so forth. And it was all repressed memory. And at the same time, you had a growth of claims of alien abduction from secular psychologists. So you had Christian psychologists promoting this idea of satanic ritual abuse, while you have other psychologists promoting the idea of UFO abductions. There was a Chicago talk show host, Dick Staub, who had someone on there trying to refute the idea of satanic ritual abuse, and I guess trying to promote the idea that yes, it's true. And about midway through the program, the guest who was promoting the idea that it is true started mentioning that he himself had also been abducted by an alien UFO, and Dick Staub did everything he could to get him off the show immediately because he realized he had just been duped.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah. So what would you say the current status of this idea is, particularly among Christians? Are Christians being duped by the idea of UFOs and what that might mean to the planet, not to mention our gross national product or whatever?
You know, that's a good question. That's actually a question I actually didn't anticipate. I don't know why. Because I'm aware that so many Christians are being misled by so many other winds of doctrines that are flowing into the church in this day and age, as you guys well know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I know that there are some, some Christians that I know of that would say, or professing Christians that would probably say they do believe in hard craft, coming and aliens, ET, from other places, or at least they're really not sure. I'm more sure that they're not for a variety of reasons, but I'm certain that some Christians would buy into that. I mean, the times being what they are, I think the times of apostasy, that all the things that are going on, I think that the belief in ufology is about as good as any. I mean, it's a great counterfeit religion for people to get into.
I'm right now, as you're talking, my mind is recalling an episode of The Simpsons. One of my favorite characters on there is the Reverend. And there was this one episode where there was supposedly this alien spaceship that was being kept in a barn, I think, or some huge wooden building, and everybody in the town was gathered around to see if it really was. And as it starts coming out, it's very impressive. It has all these lights and everything. And the Reverend is right up there in the front of the crowd. And as soon as he sees it, he pulls off his collar, throws it down on the ground, and says, "I knew it, I knew it." and of course, it turns out to be phony. It turns out to be not true at all.
Mm.
My suspicion is that this is, when you talk about so many things that the church is deceived about, or that many people in the church are deceived about, that this is kind of like a tip of the iceberg thing. If you were to maybe do a survey of Bible-believing Christians and ask them, do they believe that there are intelligent beings on other planets who might be able to reach the Earth with spacecraft, I think we would be pretty surprised at what's out there in our pews and what people really think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, Don, nothing surprises you anymore. I mean, we're talking. This is why our ages are classified, folks. The exact reason nothing surprises a guy your age. So, but what are they out there? Those outside the church, they're making this is. I mean, I'm also thinking of a scene from the movie Independence Day where they show different reactions in different cities, and of course in Los Angeles, they were gathered on the building top trying to welcome the aliens who are about to totally obliterate them. And I can see that happening. Everybody ignoring Stephen Hawking's warnings. What do you have to say about that? Yeah, what do you have to say about that, Randy?
Well, I lived in LA for 20 years, and
you're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say about fruits, nuts, and flakes, and it's an interesting culture there. That was one of the reasons I actually went out there, because I figured that would open up doors for ministry and in dealing with all types of people from various points of view and hopefully reaching them with the gospel. I think a lot of people, not just in LA, would welcome aliens with open arms at this point in time, because it seems that the entertainment industry is, of course, there's big money in it. People are interested in it, but there also seems to be, that level of propaganda. I want to believe. People want to believe anything but the truth these days. It seems the truth, that is, being the gospel. So, I think many people are very open to these ideas. I don't know if it was the chicken or the egg which came first here, but you have people that are drawn to these ideas, but you also have Hollywood and the TV world, that obviously have been promoting this for quite some time, even into the 50s, of course. We go back to the 50s and those early flying saucer movies and whatnot. But it seems like there's just been this implanted understanding that
what an appropriate term is that? An implanted understanding. Well, 48% in 2013.
I didn't realize I said that.
In 2013, 48% of Americans believed in UFOs and ET visitations.
About that,
Randy, I think you should have been paying attention to what Gene Roddenberry was trying to tell you. I mean, there's a reason why Starfleet headquarters is not in Los Angeles.
Well, this might surprise you, but I've never been to a Star Trek convention, so I really missed out. But I've been to a whole bunch of UFO conferences. So, but Star Trek, he really he had it going on, didn't he, Mr. Roddenberry?
So, tell us about these UFO conventions.
Well, when I lived in LA, I wasn't that far from southern Nevada, right across the river. Isn't it amazing how you can't remember either city? It was a river city, and I'm trying to remember the little. It was a casino town in southern Nevada. Excuse me for this pause while I have a senior moment, and maybe it'll come to me later. But
so you're having missing time. It sounds like
I've got a little of everything's missing.
Were there any Men in Black available?
I'm missing all kinds of things. So, but anyway, this little town in southern Nevada, where I went every year for several years when I lived in LA.
The Searchlight, by chance?
No, and I'll tell you how this came about. I actually I borrowed a guy's little Toyota RV because I had to make it to the shrine, one of the shrines of ufology, and so I went to Rachel, Nevada, near Area 51, and I thought, okay, I've got a little RV, I'll go up there, and hopefully I'll come back to tell about it. And so I went up there, and they just happened to be having a biannual UFO conference there. That's how I found about the one in the little Nevada city that I still can't remember. So, but this was like the mother of all UFO conferences. It was a week long. It was called the International UFO Congress. They had speakers from all over the world. And so over the years, I made it a habit to go because, you know, I was fascinated by it, but I was getting firsthand. I went to a lot of the New Age festivals, the Whole Life Expos out in LA as well. You know, somebody would probably say, well, you need to get a life, but anyway, I really enjoyed.
I get that a lot myself.
But I enjoyed going and just tapping into what was taking place there, coming from a Christian perspective, and just seeing all the various ideas and views that were coming at both type festivals. And of course, there was also the UFO groups, you know, that were involved in the New Age conferences as well. But at the UFO Congress that I went to, it was amazing because you had some people that were seriously impaired, you know, in some way. You know what I mean? They you know, there were some people.
All those experiments that the aliens had performed on them.
Exactly, that'll do it.
But I mean, you had this wide range of people who were, you know, one brick short of a load, however you want to put it, and then you had other people. Why can't I remember anybody's name tonight? The guy that founded the Institute for Noetic Sciences, Edgar. This gentleman was one of the astronauts, and I've got it in my notes here somewhere. But no, and here we go. Thank you, Lord. Found it that easy. Edgar Mitchell.
Okay.
Edgar Mitchell has, of course, spoken there, and you know, a very intelligent man, an astronaut. He started this New Age organization, so of course he's missing a few bricks spiritually speaking. But you had this wide range of people who, and then of course you had the corner where they had all their different you know, chakra readings and psychic fair type things, and selling you psychic magazines, and I mean, there was just such an amazing appetite for the occult at these settings. You know, there were some people there who weren't necessarily drawn to that, but that, I would say, at least at this conference, which is a really big one, there was that appetite for the occult and for the New Age. And so it was interesting because you had such a wide range of people and speaking. Some of them you'd say, man, are you crazy, you know? And then the others you'd say, wow, I think I'm going to join. You know, no, not really, but you know what I'm saying. There were intelligent people, and a lot of intelligent people, as you probably know, who have been caught up in this and who are caught up in this. And I got to see a real cross-section of the UFO community at these conferences.
Now, ufology, is that found right before women's studies in the college catalogs?
I don't know. I've never been to the women's study class. But I should have looked again in the catalog.
They're trying to make it sound like there's actually something to study there. Okay, ufology. There's an actual somewhere. How do they subject this to empirical scrutiny? UFOs. What we're really talking about are stories that people tell, sometimes with questionable video footage and questionable photographic evidence.
True.
So it sounds to me, Ron, like you're confused about things, right?
Yeah, well, that's only because I am.
I'm confused about what I just saw there on Don's face, but you know.
How can you make a science out of this? How does this somehow go from total speculation to science? Ufology, well, yes.
It's really easy. We just transition so easily from one thing to another.
I see you transitioning right before my eyes, almost. You know.
Yeah, E.T. call home.
But Randy, one thing I want to point out is I want to emphasize what you say about them being, many of them, maybe even most of them being really intelligent people. We're not talking about uh, we're not talking about you know two French fries short of a Happy Meal for everybody here. We're
Yes.
I'm thinking of stories of people I've known and other people. For instance, I have a friend who was doing daycare work back in the early 80s, and one of her parents, a mom who would drop off their child, had a master's in English and was working as a successful executive in a very, very high-paying job, so she was able to afford daycare, and yet she was going to these New Age conferences with put on by people like Claire Prophet. You remember that name?
Oh, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, sure.
Elizabeth
Sure.
Clare Prophet.
Ma.
And so she would be telling my friend, I just got this thing. You might want to get one too. It's a black light. You put your meat under it because these new price scanners that they have, they sap the life energy from the food. But if you put it under this, it'll restore it. And there's talk about pyramids, and my friend would look at me and say, "This is an intelligent woman. I've had very deep conversations with her about very sophisticated topics. She's far smarter than I am." In fact, the woman would say, and yet she is into all this New Age stuff. There's an intelligence quotient, and then there's a credulity quotient.
Yes.
I would say, people, there's, I want to believe, I do believe, I enthusiastically believe in some of the oddest things, and it's easy to question the intelligence of these people, but that's not the point. That's not the issue. Where is the boundary between credulity and intelligence? I wonder sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to quote Fox Muller just as you did. I want to believe. It's really a matter of the will in many cases. Or you think of Romans 1, those who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. They don't want to know the truth. They want to live in denial of true truth, and that helps. If someone chooses a certain lifestyle, a certain belief that pleases them, their flesh or whatever in some way, I think that's the biggest part of it. That the credulity comes from a willingness and a knowing, desire to ignore the truth and to stay in darkness.
Why do people want to believe in this particular thing so badly? What is this?
Well, probably, there's probably more than one reason. Some people it may be the experiential aspect. Perhaps, they have entered into some type of an altered states experience through New Age practices or the occult or what have you, and they've made a connection with the dark side. They've made a connection with a demonic spirit, with a deceiving spirit. And so the experience is, of course, you have different experiences. You have the so-called abduction experience, which is usually not real good, or you have sometimes the contactee experience, which of course oftentimes flatters the ego of the one being contacted, because hey, look how important I am that Master Ra of the third galaxy has contacted me and says he wants to be king of the earth, whatever, But so it's partly experiential, I think. I think also, again, for the same reason a lot of people don't want Christian or biblical morality or ethics in their life. They can live pretty much how you, if you believe that you are like E.T., you can spiritually evolve someday to be like Jesus just through cosmic evolution over a period of time. Well, that's pretty heady brew, for the ego. Those are a couple of things that come to mind right off the top of my head.
How many people at these ufology conferences would claim to have had some kind of personal experience, close encounter of the first, second, third, fourth, or 115th kind?
Oh, I would say a lot. You're laughing now, Don. You shouldn't be laughing. I'm trying to. No.
Ron's adding the 115th kind. I'm going, okay.
Oh, okay. All right, I missed that. Yeah, right. I would say a large, I'd say a large group because I went year after year for several years. I lived in LA for 20 years, and I would guess that I went somewhere between 12 to 15 times probably.
Okay, let me stop one here.
Okay.
We need to define our terminology.
Yes.
When we say close encounters of the first, second, third, we won't get to 115, but what are the first 3 or 4? What are they? Define those for us.
Well, I can give you I can actually give you all of them because I found my notes again. Boy, God is so good to me. Sometimes I have old agers. I am old ager, but sometimes I have old timers disease, and it kicks in at the inappropriate times. Close encounters of the first kind would be they constitute sighting a UFO with or without occupants at 500 feet or closer.
So this is also known as the Jimmy Carter level of close encounters.
There you
right?
go. Yes.
And Louis Farrakhan.
Louis Farrakhan level.
Louis
okay.
Farrakhan. All right.
I don't believe Jimmy actually made contact with the pilots, but
no.
Go ahead. Okay.
But Farrakhan actually was taken for a spin, as I understand, in one of the.
Yep, that's a close one.
And not only that, when he flies around the country, UFOs are flying next to his airplane. He can see them.
Yeah. Wow. Why not, huh?
Well, yeah. And
if I said some of the things he says,
he's an interesting speaker. I like. He doesn't make sense, but he can go on for several hours without any notes. And
can't we all? I'm sorry.
And he holds your attention. Okay.
And he does hold your attention.
Second.
Just for fun, hold that just for fun. Now you got me on Farrakhan here, just for fun.
How do we go from aliens to Farrakhan?
I don't know.
Because of UFOs, and he's floating around in them. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is living on one of them.
Yeah.
And he says to the black man, don't be afraid. They are your friends. His whole view is that they're going to swoop up the blacks, eliminate the whites, and then put the blacks back on Earth in a safe environment free from all whiteness at some point in the future.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Now it all makes sense now. It all makes sense. Go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
You want the next one?
Second, right.
We just wanted you to start. We didn't want you to finish.
Let's go to a commercial break. No.
I've got it lined up.
All right. Close encounters of the second kind involves UFOs that leave physical effects on the environment, such as landing marks, broken tree limbs, etc.
This is the crop circles, like the Mel Gibson crop circles level. Okay.
Right. Another name for crop circles, I think, is Cheerios, isn't it? Because they're made out of the grain. But anyway, that joke never worked, so I'll just move on. Close encounters of the third kind comprise the sighting of UFOs with occupants at very close range, including landed craft with occupants in or about the craft. Now we're getting into the really good ones here. Close encounters of the fourth kind involve alleged abductions by UFOs where people claim to be involuntarily taken on board a UFO for experimentation purposes of communication or other reasons. And then, I have 6 here, but close encounters of the fifth kind, and I usually emphasize, of course, the fourth and the fifth because of the abduction we hear so much about, and then the contactees. Close encounters with the fifth kind involve what are termed contactees. Those persons who claim to be in personal contact with UFO entities, typically through occult means. Now, close encounters of the sixth kind include injuries or deaths resulting from a UFO close encounter. Those are the 6 that I have on hand for you.
Shouldn't there be like a Heaven's Gate level? What would that be? Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind?
Yeah, where you take your own life, huh?
Where your soul is transported out of your body right after you drink poison.
Yeah.
But people don't usually talk about those after they have those experiences.
No, there's not a lot of testimony of how good the Heaven's Gate was to them, what they gained from that.
But again, it's something you both touched on earlier is you have in Heaven's Gate very intelligent people.
Yes.
Very intelligent computer programmers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, who were involved in following this UFO view that there was this UFO coming behind the Hale-Bopp comet, and
That's right.
from my understanding, they had actually bought a telescope and they couldn't see it, so they took it back and said it was broken. They bought a pair of binoculars, which they couldn't see as well, but they knew they could see something. And then they took their lives.
And they took the balance of the money and went to Vegas and went to the buffets. I mean, I'm serious, of course. It's a little levity, but that's what I understand is that they had a big meal and stuff before they finally
before they did the big deed, right?
Yeah.
So a common element here, though, with cults is what we might call the secret knowledge. They have some special knowledge that the average person doesn't have access to, and I think that's really powerful to keep them in that way. Yeah,
I think that's that's another one of the answers, I think, to what Ron was asking about. Why do people? Why would they get involved with this? The occult promises that special secret knowledge, or Gnosticism or whatever,
I think I was watching a video that you were in, Randy, before we came on this program, and I forget whether it was you or your interviewer who was saying, probably was you, that this is not the kind of thing that was kind of fad or belief or trend or whatever you want to call it that was possible 200, 300, 400 years ago.
Right.
It's something that is, in a way, it's a kind of a fantasy world that our technology has given birth to.
Yes.
Now, you can go back in history and read as people began to become aware of the fact that these planets are actually like worlds, that they're big, huge objects that are sometimes bigger than our planet. As this awareness began to dawn on the astronomers, beginning around the time of Galileo and moving forward, you'll read even Christians wondering if there are people on these other planets. It wasn't really a big deal. It didn't have any implications for evolution or anything because there was no theory of evolution. It was just, gee, I wonder what's going on up there. And then as you get into the 20th century, we finally devise the means to get some pretty close-up views of the nearest planets, and they put the Palo Alto telescope out there, which is the first one that's Hubble's telescope, Charles Hubble's telescope, that actually sees Andromeda Galaxy for the first time. And right around that time, they're also getting pretty close-up images of Mars, and they're doing spectral analysis and trying to determine, the atmosphere and all that. And this is around the time of Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin is, I think, talkies have come in as movies, but Chaplin is still an actor, and he hears somebody tells him, an astronomer tells him, that as far as we can tell, there is no life on Mars. That there does not seem to be much chance of any life on that planet. And Charlie Chaplin's quote, his response was famous, 3 words: "I am lonely." It made him feel lonely. The idea that we're alone in the universe.
Okay. Yeah.
It made him feel, and of course, what this says about him, of course, you would not necessarily feel lonely to hear this if you still had an infinite personal God and myriads of angels and a multitude of the redeemed waiting for you in heaven.
Right.
You wouldn't feel lonely if you had those kinds of anchoring and foundational beliefs. Obviously, he didn't. Obviously, he didn't have an infinite personal God, at least not the kind I'm aware of, who would prevent him from being lonely just by the fact that he heard that there's no life on Mars.
Yeah.
So that's where I think religion intersects with ufology. Why ufology really is it's a substitute religion, because now I think that Star Wars and Star Trek, that's our Middle Earth. That's the Middle Earth of our generation. It is, we like to look back on Tolkien's universe, Tolkien's medieval universe, and all those weird creatures that populated it. But, that's before space travel. Now, we're going to find those people now. We're going to find all those creatures on other planets. It's like a new mythology, a new way of looking at the universe that's really very old. It says more about us than it does about the universe.
That's a good point. Now, we're going to take a commercial break and then come back on that note.
So you want me to tell you want our sponsors to have a word or two?
Yes,
is that what you want?
absolutely,
Okay, Don.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna hear from our friends at World's End Theology Outlet, and they're telling us that experts have been warning us. The signs have been there for anyone willing to see them, and now you can learn how easy it is to recognize the messages that extraterrestrial aliens are sending us in the products we purchase each and every day. Thanks to this exclusive DVD offer, I Want to Believe. This is by the acclaimed alien specialist Nadia Believe Me. This is a one-time offer, limited, not available in stores or in parallel universes. Order it today. I Want to Believe by Nadia Believe Me. Available only through World's End Theology Outlet. And now back to our program.
Okay. I like that idea that this is our Middle Earth theology.
Or mythology.
Mythology, yeah.
It could be a theology if you want it to be.
Well, it kind of almost is a theology, because in almost every case, the beings that are visiting us at least represent themselves as benevolent.
Yes.
We have that in Contact, which was based on, let's see,
Sagan? Carl Sagan?
Yes, Carl Sagan. Interesting. It was very interesting because it's a film about faith by someone who denounces faith, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is about fact and what we can prove, what's physical, empirical evidence, and yet he bases his film about ETs on faith. And then we had, of course, we had the series V, where we had beings from another planet that came. Why all the planets, these beings are interested in Earth, I can't quite understand, but came and represented themselves as benevolent. They're going to eliminate hunger, and they're going to eliminate starvation. I mean, sickness, and everything's going to be better. And as it turns out, they were malevolent. They were here for evil purposes, to bring us food, which sort of takes us back to Twilight Zone.
To serve man.
Yeah,
serve
man.
Exactly.
We're here to serve man.
Yeah.
You have the
Canaanites
right. You have the Canaanites who have landed and they're fixing everything, and we have peace, and we have eliminated poverty, and the translators have figured out one phrase of the title of a book they left them, which is To Serve Man, and it's the end of the film as the chief translator who had stopped working on translations is being rocketed away, that his assistant comes out and says, "Don't go, it's a cookbook."
How true.
Well, you do have this dichotomy. Stephen Hawking represents the Twilight Zone V wing of ufology. In other words, maybe we shouldn't be in too big of a hurry to contact these extraterrestrials. We might just be giving away our location to people or to beings that want to do us harm. Whereas I think there's this other wing of thought that maybe you could call it the Arthur C. Clarke School, who believes that any being that is able to get here, that is able to traverse the vast distances of space, must be so far advanced beyond us, and he obviously includes moral advancement, whatever that means to him. In his terms, the beings are going to come here to help us. They're going to do something wonderful, as we hear in 2010, the sequel to 2001. So you assume an evolution that leads to a higher, not just technical order, but a higher moral order. So these beings must be benevolent. After all, that's what evolution's all about, isn't it? I mean, isn't it? I mean, isn't it? The current thinking is yes, it is. I mean, the President of the United States believes we are evolving toward a higher order, that there's this magical date, the beginning of the 21st century, that somehow we leapfrogged. I don't know how far in evolutionary progress in morality and in international relations, that now, just because we're in the 21st century, our foreign policy is more evolved. Well, really? I mean, maybe evolution, if there is something like that, maybe it's to make us more, just better predators. Maybe if evolution is true, is evolution between species into higher orders of species, maybe the next higher order is just going to be really, really good at destroying other worlds and laying them waste and exploiting them. Why not?
Mm-hmm. It seems that to me that there is usually the spin in most of the movies, TVs, etc., that it is a good thing, that they mean us no harm. They mean us. They want to serve us, as you say in the Twilight Zone.
on a spittle.
Yeah.
On a rotisserie.
But even in, like I say, the abduction cases, of course, some of those get pretty hairy. Whatever reality they're experiencing, whatever's going on in their mind, whatever demonic pictures being painted or movies being played in their head, so much of that is grotesque and scary and creepy. But even in those non-benign experiences, there's still the attempt by many, maybe because they're in denial and they don't want to say, I can't believe I just went through that. It was unbelievable. It was so creepy. There are those in the ufology world, the hardcore people, some of these folks, who, of course, will try to explain that away. Well, it's for good. We're going to make hybrids. We're going to, it's for a good thing that I was taken aboard this ship and forced, to have sexual experiments done on me, and on and on and on. So, I think you're right that there is this positive spin that's put on. It's evolution is going to be good. It's cosmic evolution, and that's generally, and I think that's the picture that's painted. And I do believe, of course, that our ancient foe, the devil, is behind this. So much of this, it's a combination of people's credulity, their desire to not conform to God and His ways. But obviously, Satan the deceiver, this is a great tool because of this technological time that we're in.
What I would like to know is, one of the things that we hear, one of the common themes or motifs of ufology that is bandied about, is that the experiences are so similar. The experiences are, you have these common motifs of the sexual, they laid me out on this table, and they put a cup over my groin, or some kind of device. And another one is, there were these men in black, and another one is, lost memory, lost time. There's a whole probably catalog of these things. Has anyone really done a study to find out really how similar are these themes, or are they? There's been, during the 1950s and 60s, that was really one of the huge times of experimental psychology, where they actually tested people in large numbers. It was funded by industry. It was funded by the companies that wanted to enhance productivity among their employees. But they were doing a lot of studies, and also, when you look at the Cold War, it also produced studies such as studies on the way groupthink worked during the Cuban Missile Crisis, as opposed to how it had worked earlier during the Bay of Pigs, or if it was cured by the Bay of Pigs, so that it didn't happen during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so the word groupthink comes to mind here because I have an experience. I haven't articulated it yet. It's kind of an embryonic thing. I'm still trying to make sense of it. First thing you do is you put me in a group of people who all claim to have the same experiences. And what am I doing? I'm starting to learn how to think like the group thinks. Mm-hmm. So how do you know that these experiences really are so similar? Have there really been any empirical studies? Not that I can see a grant money going this way, but have people really taken this on as a project, trying to understand, are these real stories, or are they stories that kind of became real to the people as they were trying to sort out whatever experience they had?
Yeah, that's interesting. Just one comment. It kind of reminds me of the whole hippie movement. Everybody was being a nonconformist as they became like all the other hippies, right? But,
right.
But not to my knowledge. I don't know that there's. It's very possible, of course. This is such a, this is such an interesting topic. There's so many people that are involved and interested in it and whatever. I don't know that anybody has done, off the top of my head. It's very possible that they have.
Well, unbiased would be a key word here in Ron's question, not just has someone done a research project.
Okay.
Did they do an unbiased research project?
Right.
And even if you're talking about this, I'm thinking about the whole SRA claims in the 1990s, and one of the psychiatrists who was promoting this, or my friend the late Bob Passantino was talking with, and he said, I know this is true. I have two patients who both have had a similar experience. They are not connected. They didn't know each other. One was born on the East Coast. One was born on the West Coast. They never met each other.
There's a connection right there.
That they didn't know each other, right?
But here's the story. Here's the story. During the Second World War, the Pope, of course, the Vatican is where? Well, it's in Rome. Who was one of our enemies in the Second World War? Well, actually, it was Italy. But supposedly, the Pope sent a plane over, abducted a young girl, flew her back to the Vatican, sexually molested her, flew her back then to the U.S., and then later did it again with another female, never met each other, don't know each other, and he insists there's no connection between the two. And Bob said, well, of course there is a connection. And the psychiatrist said, well, what is that connection? He goes, you are the connection, which is true. He helped them dredge up these repressed memories that they had from decades earlier where they were abducted by the Pope for sexual molestation.
And that guy was very grateful to have Bob point that out, wasn't he?
He was definitely not grateful, no. But Bob had an influence on people. I mean, he was very sharp, very perceptive, and could ask those kinds of questions. We have a similar thing with UFOs. For those who are, by the way, those who are viewing, if they're viewing it live, they can send in questions to us either through our email, through our Google account, or something like that, or on the Q&A tab on the side, and we will try to get to those.
We have a whole, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I think I can see where you're going. We have a whole field of study which is sometimes disparaged, and sometimes it's actually held up as a very valid, legitimate field of study that is based on the concept of suggestibility.
Right.
And I'm thinking of hypnosis. Is it possible to suggest things to people in such a way, using a particular set of techniques, let's say, that will implant memories or implant experiences or whatever in people's minds, that they think they are somebody else, they think they're in some other place, and they'll even make choices that were actually given to them to be made by someone else. I don't know. I personally don't know a lot about hypnosis, but I do know a lot of people take it seriously. If there's any element of truth in it, then why would not one of the first thoughts you have when you hear about all of these alleged experiences be that we have a group of people, a certain percentage of people in our society who are very suggestible? You can suggest things to them, and they will think they actually happened to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, were you going to say something, Ron? Go ahead.
No, I just.
I mean, not Ron, Don. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, what I was going to say is that the studies that have been done on this have been done revolved on memory around the whole question of SRA, satanic ritual abuse, kinds of claims. They've done some really interesting studies, especially with children, but to some degree with adults, where that they would take, say, a young man and say, who nothing had happened to, and they asked him, no, nothing had happened to him, and then they started suggesting to him that he had had a broken arm, and then he started realizing that, yeah, he probably did have a broken arm. And how did that happen? Well, the broken arm happened when my dad and I were in the basement and he was working on the furnace. And really what happened? Well, then it started out, well, his dad actually hit him, and then it was, no, my dad intentionally grabbed my arm and broke it on purpose. And he built this whole story, which then later they tried to get him to realize was not a true story. None of the events happened. But he had become so persuaded as he had built the story that it was for him a real memory. So you can lead people through easily.
Don, you know about my experiences in a particularly spiritually abusive group. Well, one of the things we had was recovered memories in our group.
Right.
And we had people who became convinced in one case, I don't even want to talk about the details of it because the supposedly recovered memory was just so grotesque and so just appalling that this kind of thing would ever happen. But the woman she divulged this recovered memory, quote unquote, after literally weeks of horrendous treatment by the leader of our group, where he just was very, very verbally abusive toward her, and it was because she must be hiding something and there must be something there, and he attacked her and he drove her into a state of hysteria until she comes up with this story. And several months later, she recants the story, and that's used as the basis for kicking her out of the group. And it's evidence that the fact that she's recanting the story is being used as evidence that she's this evil person who's just totally manipulative and can't be trusted and all this. And I'm sitting here watching this thinking, okay, this guy's supposedly an expert in this. He has seen this before. He has all these years of experience, and he has this resume, which I found out later, half of it wasn't even true. Half of his resume was just totally inflated. I'm an educated person. I'm sitting there with a PhD and two other people with master's degrees, in this room watching this happen. And only years later do we realize that this was an absolute, it was horrific. I can't, words can barely describe what I saw happen to this person. This is with a person who is trying not to believe something. She's trying to fight it all the way. Now you take this situation and you reverse it to somebody who wants to believe, he or she wants to believe something. How much easier is it going to be to manipulate that person into a situation where they're going to end up believing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think hypnosis itself, given everything you said, right to the point, but hypnosis itself, I also believe, creates an altered state of consciousness where you can really paint a picture or influence, or I forgot the term you used, but
suggestibility. This woman,
yeah.
Yeah, this woman, by the way, was never hypnotized.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I got,
So in other words,
okay, right.
I'm bringing in. Really, the bigger topic is
I got that.
suggestibility.
Right.
Hypnosis apparently is a technique that depends on suggestibility. It acknowledges that.
Yeah.
That it depends on the suggestibility of people, and what I'm suggesting is that people are suggestible in multiple types of environments, multiple types of social environments.
Right.
And this there's one that we call hypnosis. There's another that I would call cultic involvement, and then there's others that I would just call interesting parallel universe belief systems, or whatever you want to call them.
And how much more, and I got your point, that how much more would the person that's already susceptible, there's that susceptibility, then if you bring in hypnosis, the technique of hypnosis, that they want to believe, how much more are they likely to go into that delusion? But
just social pressure, in very intense social pressure.
Peer pressure and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think, I guess I did want to just make that statement that I personally believe that hypnosis is bringing people into an altered state where all you have to do is watch a stage hypnotist, right? And they hypnotize the person, and they say, you're at home taking a shower right now, and the person's going through the motions of taking the shower, and in their mind, in their reality, right? In their reality, they are home taking a shower because it's that real to them. And so hypnosis is just another tool. Whether people use drugs or Eastern meditation to empty their mind or whatever, that opens them up to spiritual delusion, I guess. I just had to get that in there, that I think hypnosis is a very powerful tool for altering one's consciousness towards deception.
Well, right, it is, but it is, as Ron pointed out, it is a tool for suggestibility, and I think that's the key word here: suggestibility. Mm-hmm. It is not likely, at least we haven't seen the evidence, that we actually have beings from other planets who are traveling hundreds and thousands of light years to pop in and have a Mickey D's.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't really see that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Now, that doesn't mean that some beings aren't visiting. Mm-hmm. I would suggest, and I think you've alluded to this, for those who are viewing, that those beings would be spiritual in nature, not physical. Mm-hmm. They would be demonic, in other words, fallen angels, mm-hmm. that are influencing some people, but that's even only probably a small percentage. I think the suggestibility factor and desire to have some secret knowledge that others don't have access to, and make yourself not make yourself. It gives you a special feeling that I have information that no one else really has access to.
Yeah, makes you special.
Yeah, Genesis chapter 3.
Yes.
Yes, Genesis chapter 3.
Well, the one of the things that's of interest to me too is just how many of these real close-up UFO sightings happen in urban areas. Occasionally we do hear about urban area UFO sightings, but and sometimes they're witnessed by multiple people, but they always tend to be just like lights in the sky that take these configurations and then vanish away. They disappear. Mm-hmm. I don't see anybody, identifying a particular shape of object until you get way out in the countryside. You get into Yosemite someplace, 20 miles away from the nearest road, and then you get these amazing pictures. They're still a little bit blurry, but boy, are they interesting when you get far away from urban areas.
You know what, though? You just raised an interesting point that we didn't really touch on, is that some of the claimed sightings actually do have natural explanations for them. Mm-hmm. Right, Randy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Give us a couple or a few.
There are, what do they call, ball lightning, or which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I have heard that there are natural explanations. Sometimes it might be a star that somebody thinks is moving. I could tell you a couple of my sightings, that I know were not of a spiritual nature or demonic, but I wanted to say that just to play devil's advocate, you know, there are natural sightings. I can't give you a lot of, nothing comes immediately to my mind. I'm sorry, I'm more focused, I guess, in another direction. But just to play devil's advocate, we had the Phoenix lights over the city of Phoenix, which 10,000 people saw, and there was video footage of it. Now, what the heck was that? Well, I don't think it was alien craft from another dimension. The local Air Force base, when people called about it, you know, they said, they stonewalled them and said, oh, no, we got nothing. Nothing's going on out here. Nothing's happening. You know, no way. So, you know, there's different explanations for different things, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But I will say that it does make sense to me that sometimes the government will do secret testing. Of course, that's why they call that highway that runs by Rachel, Nevada, they actually named it. They had the Independence Day, that movie that came out. They had the actors come out and they dedicated the highway, the Intergalactic Highway, I think they called it, because there were so many sightings of so many weird things out in the middle of nowhere, you know, where this base was. So to me, now I'd agree that more often than not, it's in secluded areas and you see things and all that. But then there are those things that happen. You go, what is it? And the gullibility factor would say, well, it had to be a UFO craft, you know, because it was a triangular lights, you know, in a row over a city. What else could it be hovering there? I've seen that in the movies, you know. But you know, later when they came back on that, they said, oh yeah, oh wait a minute, we had some of these lights that they used to trace, you know, in warfare with planes. I forgot what they're called right now, but they're heat-seeking things that they drop, and they're amber lights. I've seen them up in the Rachel, Nevada area, and they say, oh, that's all those lights were. They were just those things that we just had some of those things out there. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what they're called. Didn't get enough sleep last night. But the point is, you can watch the video and you can see that they weren't these hanging lights that, I mean, these flares. That's what they are. They're flares, okay? You could see because the actual flares will have a trail on them at some point. They'll start to have this little trailing effect, but that's what the government's cover story was. Now I think, you know, hey, the government needs to test things. They need to have ways to help protect us from our enemies. I don't have a problem with that, but in that case, I don't have any idea what it was. Some people say it might have been holographic projections, some type of technology that they can use in some type of future warfare situation. But 10,000 people, including a local congressman, are going, what the, you know, and they had footage of it and everything else. Now that is sort of an exception to a lot of the things that are claimed to be, you know, authentic UFO sightings or footage or whatever. But that one stands out to me because I saw something similar at Rachel, Nevada, only they were red lights, not white lights. But this was within months of that Phoenix sighting. And I'm going, wow, it was really weird. And then later when the Phoenix Lights things came out, I'm like, hey, you know.
Okay, so what you had actual physical phenomena that was done by the government, which they were less than honest and forthcoming about until later.
Well, yeah, although I'm not even sure that they ever owned up that it was the exotic technology they were testing. They were saying it was these flares. To my knowledge,
they never matter. They admitted they were up to something.
Okay, I see. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
That's the only point. They didn't tell us what it was exactly, or maybe we're not completely forthcoming on all aspects, but they did say, oh, by the way, yes, we were doing something.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, that's right. We forgot. Yeah.
We just forgot. It was a night crew, and we forgot that they were doing anything.
Yeah.
Ron, do you have another word from our sponsors?
It's funny you should mention that. Yes, I do. We want to hear from our friends that we mentioned earlier, and they asked the question, are churches getting a little too individualistic for your tastes? Do you often wish that it wasn't so hard to fit in with the new Christians you meet? Would you rather be part of a collective than a uniquely gifted member of a fellowship? Well, then you need to consider assimilation ministries where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. Their pastoral staff is waiting to serve you and to help your process of assimilation and this is Assimilation Ministries, available in a city near you, or it will come to you and find you somehow. And back to you guys.
And that is the Borg, a word from the Borg, Assimilation Ministries.
No.
Well, that was a chairman of the Borg, wasn't it?
Well,
The chairman of the Borg, yeah.
We're not supposed to know that yet. The temporal prime directive prevents us from knowing what that is. So.
Well, gentlemen, it has been a fun night. We're running a few minutes over right now. We probably should come back and do this again in the future. But for those who are viewing, one of the books that we would definitely recommend is Ron Rhodes. You want to hold it up for him again, Randy?
Yes.
Alien Obsession.
Mm-hmm. Can you see that?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I can see it, but I don't know if you can. I'm such a high-tech guy, you know.
Looks pretty good.
Can you?
I think so.
Well, looks pretty good. I should have implanted it in our program here, but in the future, if we do another one in the future, we'll make sure to do that.
Now,
is there anything else, John Weldon's book? Did you say?
I was going to say the best book I ever read back in the day was UFOs: What on Earth is Happening? Of course, you know, where do you find this book nowadays? I don't know. I hope you can. It's excellent. Also, maybe from John Ankerberg's ministry. The Facts On series, the Facts On UFOs, that is John Weldon and John Ankerberg. And then again, I don't know, they're probably out of print. Maybe you can find them on Amazon. I'm just a few books, but Bill Alnor's UFO Cults in the New Millennium. He wrote 2 books on UFOs, and then UFOs in the New Age is another. There's a few. You know, I just quickly. This is one, when you mentioned Von Daniken, you guys, do you remember this man, Clifford Wilson, this Australian guy? This is an old book called Crash, Go the Chariot.
Yeah, I used to have a copy of that. That's the rebuttal to Von Daniken. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
All right, Randy, if anyone wanted to contact you, can they do that directly, or do they need to contact you through us?
They could contact me through you. They could contact me through my email. oldager1951@yahoo.com. We have a website for my ministry. At this point in time, I'm not sure how long we're going to have it. We've had it for a while, but anyway, Biblical Discernment and Research Center Incorporated. It's www.biblical-discernment.com. So any of those 3 ways. I know I'll be getting tons of fan mail. Just joking.
By the way, when you brought up, when you showed that book, Crash Goes the Chariots, you just brought back a flood of memories. I was not.
Were they repressed?
No doubt they were repressed. I was. If you ever read Von Daniken, you would see he finds evidence in the most bizarre things for alien technology that must have existed in primitive times, and a friend of mine tried to get me to read that book by Wilson, and I grudgingly purchased it and started to read it, but I didn't really take it that seriously. I was sort of like, I really wanted to believe that, you know, aliens could have visited our planet in the past, but I was also trying to become a science fiction writer. I was writing short stories, and I was actually submitting manuscripts to publishers and stuff, and I subscribed to 2 of the most prominent science fiction magazines, and one of them put a spoof of Chariots of the Gods, a short vignette spoof of it, and that actually had more impact on me than any sustained argument, because it was a satirical piece designed to, written in the style of Eric Von Daniken, and one of the things that finally got me, and I realized just how absurd the articles of Von Daniken were, was when he cited a clay model of a nude woman, and I'd seen these, you know, you see them in like National Geographics there, and he says, and right there planted on her chest were 2 modern doorbells, obviously indications of advanced technology in primitive times, and it was, of course, it was hysterical, but at the same time, it just clicked in my head that these are exactly the kind of arguments that Von Daniken was making, and then I picked up Wilson's book, and I realized, okay, it makes sense, and that was okay. I had to grudgingly admit to my friend that, yeah, you're right. This is nonsense. That all happened before I became a Christian.
And we are going to, for tonight, we're going to start the wrap up and say, by the way, next week we're going to have Dr. Robert Stewart from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. We just haven't decided what we're going to talk to him about yet, but we do know we're going to have him. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
do you want
to
do the walkout for us here?
Oh, sure. Yes, let's talk about that. Our resident cult leader profiler here is Neil before me. Our Jehovah's Witnesses coverage is handled by Armageddon and D. Opposer. Mormon Archives manager is Polly Gummis. Our liberal denominations bureau is headed up by Lou C. Goosey. Our transgender coverage is handled by Ben Hur. Our fact check supervisor is Nolan Coling. Our technical assistance is provided by Murky Research. Our legal advisors are the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Grievance Resolutions Director is Giovanna P. Sami. Our Director of Privacy Assurance is YR Tapping. And our original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc., which is solely responsible for its content, but you will not be able to prove that in a court of law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. And as always, it's been fun. Let's see. How about
We're still learning about this technology stuff. It's amazing how many people you can fit into a webcast audience, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, we could have like 10 people live in here if we wanted to control that. But I don't know.
Now you're talking about real people. Okay. Okay. Where's the? You got one of those too?
Oh, you want that one?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay. Rim shot. And with that, we will see you all next week on the Unknown Webcast. Thank you all for watching.